My name is Cynthia Gutierrez, and today I'm going to be talking about climate change and one of its greatest contributors, animal agriculture, or in simpler terms, meat. Now, I'm going to be talking about its causes, its effects, its solutions, mindset, and behavior that we, us, you and I, can change because we have control over it, because we consume it every day. Now, why does climate change even matter? Well, let's say you're driving to work and then you remember that you left the stove on. You would worry, right? And if your house were on fire, you would panic, right? I know the extreme situation I'm mentioning here is a little far-fetched. It's not on the top of the list of things that you worry about, but it definitely gives you an insight to the gravity of the situation of climate change. Now, concerns for climate change have actually been around for decades, but it didn't really become or properly introduced until the 1990s in the first assessment report by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change in 1990 by NASA. It was then that was properly understood, properly introduced, that there was and is natural greenhouse effects resulting from human activity, and that human activity ranges in many things, one of them animal agriculture, and it have a big impact on our global warming. That was 30 years ago. Now, if you go on to climate.nasa.gov, you will learn about the potential effects, such as wildfires, droughts, tropical storms that will become just more intense more often, and you'll also learn about its causes. Now, these causes are usually molecules, a little handful of molecules, but the one we're going to be talking about, the one that matters here the most, the one that we have control over, is methane. Now, methane is a hydrocarbon gas produced both through natural sources and human activities, including the decomposition of waste in landfills, agriculture, and especially rice cultivation, as well as ruminant digestion, that's farts, and manure management associated with domestic livestock. On a molecule-for-molecule basis, methane is a more active greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide, but also one which is less abundant in the atmosphere. Now, I know I just threw a whole bunch of scientific kind of mumbo jumbo, but what that means is this molecule is like fire. Okay? If you were cold, you will warm up a lot faster by a fire than if you simply put on a coat. But a coat would last longer, which is carbon dioxide, while the fire, if you're not careful, can be put out. This is methane, and warms the atmosphere a lot faster and a lot more intensely, but it doesn't last as long as the coat. So, according to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, achieving significant reductions would rapidly and significantly affect on atmospheric warming potential. Let me repeat that. Would have a rapid and significant effect on atmospheric warming potential. we can control methane if we know where methane is coming from. And so what does that have to do with meat? Studies presented by Compassion in the World Farming that livestock produces 37 to 65% of our global methane and nitrous oxide, respectively. This means that animal agriculture, more specifically factory farms, are high contributors to the increased methane in our atmosphere, and by default, climate change. Factory farms that are intensive in animal farming put production above all else, creating vast quantities of seemingly cheap meat, milk, and eggs. But factory farms, they come at a great cost. They are treated as commodities. Animals are often raised in intense confinement. And factory farms are also highly dependent on large quantities of precious resources, such as grain-based feed, land, water, energy, and medication. Medication, like antibiotics, our antibiotic industry is actually more used towards animal agriculture than it is actually on humans. And according to conventional biological diversity, climate change may affect plant growth and production by promoting the spread of pests and diseases, such like the H1N1, H5N1. Now, this virus is the bird flu, the avian flu, that really was actually reported in humans in the 1990s. Now, we have one that spreads fast, but usually not fatal, while one, a mutant of it, spreads slowly, but it's most likely fatal. A lot of diseases actually often come from animals and livestock, more specifically. So what can we do? Well, Foodprint has an article on climate change report making. You want to cut meat. That one, we can reduce our meat, like meatless Mondays, which will have significant impact and reduce our meat consumption by 15%. Two, consume meat that is sustainably produced, such from family farms that have a different practice that actually doesn't really hurt our environment. Three, introduce more veggies and fruits and other sources of proteins like beans and nuts. We often overlook this that our body direly needs. Lastly, the mindset of protein is vastly needed. That obsession is most likely wrong. See, especially when it comes to high levels of protein diets that is usually in high in red and processed meats, are also associated with a numerous amount of health risks, including obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and colon disease, which sometimes ends up with you having a bag attached to your skin and your feces having to remove your feces yourself because you no longer have a normal functioning colon. Now, there are all these things, all these things that you and I have control over, that we can help reduce the greenhouse emissions, the sun's heat that gets entrapped in our atmosphere, without waiting for bills to pass to regulate factory farms, without waiting for politicians or government officials to act. We, the people, from kids to adults, we can dismantle factory farms by reducing demand and therefore reducing their production. We can start saving our planet today. We can reduce the wildfires. We can reduce the droughts. We can reduce the storms that ravage our cities, our towns, our land. This life is temporary, and so is this planet, our only home. But if we want it to last longer than the rate in which we're killing it, we're going to have to act and act fast. So as Greta Thunberg said, I don't want you to be hopeful. I want you to panic. I want you to panic as you would in a crisis. I want you to act as if the house were on fire. Because it is. Thank you.